para poder regresar como Dios, el Padre, pero realizados por haber experimentado tanto el bien como el mal. El deseo de hacer más, de ser más y de tener más en lo que estás actualmente expresando, es el impulso de expansión. Puedes preguntarte si un deseo de matar o dañar a alguien puede ser inspirado por Dios. La respuesta es que ningún hombre desea genuinamente matar o dañar a otro. Puede desear ser libre de ese aparente otro, y a través de su limitado entendimiento, siente que la única forma en que puede lograr tal libertad es destruyendo al otro. El hombre no se da cuenta de que el deseo de libertad contiene en sí mismo el poder y los medios para cumplirse. Por su falta de fe, el hombre distorsiona estos regalos de Dios. Él no reconoce que Dios, la sabiduría y el poder dentro de sí, tiene caminos que él como hombre desconoce, y esos caminos son inescrutables. Aprende a ser agradecido por los deseos que te han sido dados. Ya existen y están listos para encarnarse en tu mundo. No se requiere que hagas nada para ayudar a su cumplimiento, excepto que liberes tu mente de cualquier duda sobre cómo se cumplirán y que los aceptes por completo como lo harías con un regalo de alguien querido. Traducción y voz, Luis Natera. Título original, Desire. Conciencia, Neville Goddard. El uso consciente de la ley. En esta oportunidad voy a hablar sobre quién soy y lo que hago. Si eso suena egocéntrico, lo es. Se han escrito 66 libros acerca de quién soy. Voy a citar algunas afirmaciones de algunos de esos libros. Has oído muchas de estas citas, pero sin saber que hablaban sobre el ser que yo soy. La primera cita es del libro de Éxodo. Aquí Moisés le habla a Dios y le dice: cuando regrese y hable al pueblo, ¿qué les diré que me ha enviado? La voz responde: diles, yo soy, me ha enviado a vosotros. Este es mi nombre para siempre jamás, y este es mi memorial de generación en generación. El segundo de los 10 mandamientos afirma: no tomarás el nombre del Señor tu Dios en vano. No tomarás el nombre en vano es una orden y tiene un carácter obligatorio. Significa que bajo ninguna circunstancia debes tomar el nombre en vano. Ese nombre es yo soy. Ahora, en primer lugar, todos hemos olvidado su nombre. Decimos yo soy cientos de veces al día y no sabemos que estamos usando el nombre de Dios. Segundo, intentamos quebrantar el mandamiento todo el día. No prestamos atención a lo que decimos después de yo soy. Cuando decimos yo soy, seguido de algo que no nos gustaría en nuestro mundo, estamos tomando el nombre del Señor, pero no en vano. La Biblia afirma que no podemos tomar el nombre en vano. Nada que digamos precedido por yo soy es en vano. Ese es su nombre. Es Dios mismo. Y debido a que es Dios, es creativo. Dios se dio a sí mismo a nosotros. Él es yo soy. Y ese es quien soy. Nunca puedo olvidar que yo soy. Puedo olvidar quién soy o dónde estoy, pero no puedo olvidar que existo. Siempre que digo yo soy, yo estoy creando algo. La oración es creer que ya hemos recibido aquello que pedimos. Cuando digo yo soy, estoy uniendo mi conciencia de ser a algo. Ahora, puedes mentir y no creer lo que estás diciendo, pero no puedes creer algo acerca de yo soy y no crearlo. Estamos creando mañana, tarde y noche. Título original: Conscious Use of the Law.
Helen Haxel was able to win any competition she took part in. She was known as the contest queen because she had won 7 trips to Paris, boats, houses. She would basically take part in any sweepstake she read about, any contest, and she would just win. That made my documentary crew, and I asked Helen, how do you do that? And she spoke about this thing called the Silva technique. Helen, you see, was Jose Silva's former PR manager. She had the benefit of learning closely from that man. Now, Jose Silva was a radio repairman who lived in the border town of Laredo, Texas in the 1940s. He had 10 kids, and his kids were not doing very well in school. Now, Jose Silva had a crazy idea. You see, he had served in the U.S. Army, and he was fascinated by the psychological questions that the Army psychologists would ask new recruits. So he decided to look at psychology and then look at what he knew about radio repair and figure out how he could change the mindset and the brains of his kids so they could do better in school. As a radio repairman, he knew that if you reduce the resistance of a wire, more electricity flows through it. So he wondered, what could I do to reduce the resistance in the human mind? He decided to experiment with reducing any form of resistance in his children's brain. He experimented with biofeedback. He experimented with hypnosis. And sure enough, his children's grades started improving at school. But then something astonishing happened. He was sitting down with his daughter Isabel, reading a history book and asking Isabel questions. So he would guide Isabel into a restful state of being. She would have her eyes closed. He would read her the important dates. She would be able to absorb that, and then he would ask her questions. But something strange started happening. Isabel was able to answer a question before he verbally spoke it. Now let me explain this. He would think of the question in his head, a question such as, who was the 16th President of the United States? Before he could verbally say it, Isabel would answer the question, Abraham Lincoln. Jose Silva was mind blown. And so he wrote to Professor J.B. Ryan at Duke University. J.B. Ryan was famous for his research into a concept called ESP, extrasensory perception. And Silva told Ryan, Doctor, I think I trained my daughter to have ESP. J.B. Ryan replied back in a letter and said, no, that's absolutely not true. No one can be trained to have this. Your daughter must have been born with it. Jose Silva disagreed. So he continued training the rest of his kids to develop a high degree of intuition. So now over the next 10 years, Jose Silva trained 39 Laredo children on this approach. He documented the results. He made everything hyper precise, and he proved J.B. Ryan wrong. This was a clinical skill. But then adults started noticing, and adults started coming to him in Laredo, Texas to get trained. Jose Silva decided to call this approach the Silva Mind Control Method. And what happened next was astonishing. A man wrote in a newspaper how after learning Silva's method, he was able to cure his persistent migraine headaches for good. The migraines just disappeared. The next class, Jose wrote in his autobiography, was absolutely flooded by people. And the Silva Mind Control Method ended up expanding all across the United States. So here's what Jose Silva discovered as the root cause of all our problems. We are powerful beings, but from the time we are born, from the education system we grow up in, from our parents and caregivers who may not know better, we take on so much negative programming. We actually suppress our inherent human abilities. There was a famous study done that showed that all children under the age of 4 are naturally hyper-creative and genius, but the percentage of kids who show genius ability gets lower and lower and lower as they get older. Something about our modern way of life removes these unique abilities from us. The solution Jose Silva discovered is the act of being able to consciously access altered states of consciousness. What is an altered state of consciousness? Well, our consciousness actually operates at different frequencies. You can measure this using a scientific device called an EEG machine. There's a frequency called beta, which is the waking state frequency. Most of us are in beta as we go through our jobs. But when you get into a relaxed state of mind, you go into a hyper-creative state called alpha. Alpha is known for problem solving, for accelerated healing. Meditators, monks go into alpha as part of their daily routine. Athletes are proven to go into alpha before they take a shot, before they shoot an arrow. The alpha state is what you're in when you practice relaxation and meditation. And this is why there are over 15,000 studies today that show that being relaxed and being in a meditative or mindful state actually improves your health and well-being. But you can go further than that. You can access the next state, which is called theta. Now, theta is a really curious state. Scientists who study theta say that this is the state that gives you inspiration, eureka moments. Difficult problems suddenly get solved with a great insight. Let me give you an example. Thomas Edison, the great inventor, was known for his afternoon naps, but he napped in a really curious way. Legend has it he would sleep on a sofa, holding a metal ball in his hand, and when he drifted off into deep sleep, his hand would drop, the ball would hit a metal plate next to the sofa, causing a loud clang that woke him up. In short, he was dipping into sleep and waking up, dipping into sleep and waking up. Why did he do this? Because Edison was dipping into the theta level. The theta level is the level of light sleep, and he was dipping into it to get inspiration and insights. He wasn't the only one. A famous American inventor by the name of William Gates II would create some of the most incredible patents and trademarks. He had dozens of them, but his method was to go into theta by locking himself in his darkened basement, closing all the lights, sitting on his desk, and going into a deep state of relaxation where ideas and eureka moments would flow to him. Now, while theta is the waking frequency, all of us can learn to tap into alpha and theta. And the next level is the most curious of all, delta. Delta is the level that you're in when you're asleep. But it's all about that you can learn to program your mind just before going to sleep and have your mind solve problems for you while at delta. Scientists who study delta have noticed this. People who are able to operate at the delta level of mind often tend to be incredibly lucky. Miracles happen. Crazy
Diabetes,
serendipities. You
porfis.
might call it magic or good luck, but it's something different. It almost seems like these people who are trained to access delta can bend reality. Jose Silva went
Dile que
on to
estoy
create
grabando,
this
pero me van a
incredible
saludar,
movement
¿ya?
called the Silva Mind Control Movement. It was one of the first personal growth programs in America.
¿Escuchaste lo que te dije?
His book,
Sí, señora.
The Silva Mind Control Method,
Como no me
sold
contestas.
millions upon millions of copies. Everyone from opera singer Margarita Piazza to the Chicago White Sox spoke about how Silva techniques were allowing them to improve their skill on stage or on the ball field. Silva went deep into pioneering new techniques, including the centering exercise, to rapidly take you into the alpha level. And then he created techniques to amplify focus, creativity, and intuition. His mental video technique, which he created in the mid-1990s as he lay at his deathbed, was designed to help you bring in higher intelligence, to help you solve the most difficult problems. He also created the 3 scenes technique to help you see your life unfolding exactly as you